You ever say something and instantly regret it? Not because it was rude or wrong, but because it made you sound small, unsure, or powerless. We all do it. The truth is, the way you speak tells people exactly how much confidence you have, sometimes even before your actions do. There are 6 words most people use every single day that quietly drain their authority, respect, and presence. And once you realize how much power they take from you, you'll never want to use them again. So let's talk about what they are, why they make you look weak, and what to say instead to sound strong, composed, and confident in any situation. The first and most powerful step towards sounding confident is realizing that confidence has nothing to do with volume and everything to do with clarity. Weak language often slips into our conversations not because we want to sound uncertain, but because we're afraid of how we'll be perceived if we sound too direct. We add softeners like just maybe kind of, or I think, to make our words feel polite, but what we're really doing is apologizing for having an opinion. When you start a sentence with, I just wanted to ask, or I think we should, you instantly lower the strength of your message. You sound like you need permission instead of owning your thought. It's subtle, but it completely changes how people respond to you. The truth is, every time you use those words, you're unconsciously signaling hesitation, and hesitation invites doubt. People don't follow unsure voices, they follow clear ones. When you remove softening words, your message lands with more weight, and your presence automatically commands respect. Confidence isn't about being harsh, it's about being precise. You can be kind and still be firm. When you say, I want to ask, instead of, I just wanted to ask, you show that your time and your words have value. The energy shifts from uncertainty to purpose. The moment you cut those small fillers, you sound more professional, more trustworthy, and more capable. These small verbal habits don't seem like much, but they accumulate and define how others see you. Imagine 2 people saying the same thing in a meeting. One says, I think we could try this approach maybe, and the other says, we should try this approach. The words are almost the same, but the tone behind them builds completely different levels of authority. The first one sounds unsure and is easy to overlook. The second one sounds decisive and naturally takes the lead. People listen to those who sound sure of themselves, even if they're still figuring things out internally. The reason many people use weak language is because they fear coming off as rude or controlling. But being clear isn't rude. It's actually a sign of respect because it saves people from guessing what you really mean. Clarity builds trust, while uncertainty creates confusion. When your words are clean and direct, people don't have to read between the lines, and that makes you easier to follow. Practicing confident speech starts with awareness. Pay attention to how many times you use softeners throughout the day. Notice how often you say just checking in, or I think, or maybe. Then start trimming them. Replace maybe with will, replace I think with I believe, replace I just with I want. These small shifts don't change your kindness, they strengthen your delivery. The more you practice, the more natural it becomes, and soon your speech will match the confidence you already have within you. The goal isn't to sound perfect, it's to sound present. When you trust your words, others start trusting them too, and that's when real confidence begins to show. The second thing that instantly weakens how people see you is the unnecessary use of the word sorry. It's one of the most overused words in modern communication, and while it's meant to show politeness, it often does the exact opposite. Most people say sorry automatically, without realizing they're apologizing for things that don't even require an apology. You say sorry for taking a few seconds to reply, sorry for asking a question, sorry for being busy, sorry for existing in someone's space. What that does over time is send a message to others and to yourself that you are somehow at fault for simply taking up space. Constantly saying sorry puts you in a lower position in every interaction. It tells others that their comfort is more important than your confidence. True politeness isn't about apology, it's about respect, and respect doesn't need to sound like guilt. The difference between "I'm sorry I'm late" and "thank you for waiting" is small but powerful. One focuses on what you did wrong, the other focuses on appreciation and awareness. The tone shifts from weakness to strength, from guilt to gratitude. When you stop apologizing for things that don't require it, you stop training people to see you as lesser. You start teaching them that your time, your presence, and your words have value. Apologizing too much also affects the way you see yourself. Every time you say sorry unnecessarily, you reinforce the idea that you're a burden. That creates a mindset where you constantly seek approval and over-explain your actions. People who do this aren't weak. They're usually empathetic and caring, but empathy without boundaries turns into insecurity. You can acknowledge mistakes when they happen, but when you apologize for things like expressing your opinion or standing your ground, you're giving away confidence that should be yours. Real confidence knows the difference between being at fault and being considerate. If you bump into someone, say sorry. But if you're asking a question in a meeting, there's no need to apologize. Replace those habitual sorries with phrases that still show respect but come from strength. Say thank you for your patience instead of sorry for bothering you. Say I appreciate your time instead of sorry to take your time. These swaps sound small, but they reprogram how people respond to you. They hear confidence instead of submission, and that's what builds quiet respect. When you start noticing how often sorry slips out of your mouth, it can be surprising. It's such a natural filler that it becomes invisible. The next time you feel the urge to say sorry, pause and ask yourself, am I actually at fault here, or am I just trying to make others comfortable? If it's the latter, hold your ground and express gratitude instead. You'll start to notice how different people treat you when you speak from appreciation instead of apology. Your words start to carry more weight, your tone feels calmer, and your presence becomes stronger. People start listening differently because you're communicating self-respect, not self-doubt. Confidence isn't built through over-apologizing. It's built through owning your actions and knowing your worth. Every time you choose gratitude over guilt, you quietly take back power from habits that made you seem small. The third word that weakens your message more than you realize is the word but. It's such a small word that most people never think twice before using it, yet it has the power to completely change the way your communication is received. When you use but, it automatically cancels everything you said before it. You might tell someone you appreciate their work, but the moment you add that word, the compliment disappears and all they hear is the criticism that follows. It's a habit that creates defensiveness, tension, and misunderstanding without you even meaning to. People use it because they think it helps balance honesty with kindness, but in reality, it turns connection into correction. The mind hears the word but and prepares for conflict. It sounds like opposition, not collaboration. So when you're trying to give feedback or share an opinion, that one tiny word can shift your tone from supportive to dismissive. If you say you did great, but we need to change this, the person doesn't hear the praise, they hear rejection. The message feels like what they did right doesn't matter because you erased it in the same breath. A confident communicator knows how to balance honesty and empathy without using words that divide. Replacing but with and completely transforms the energy of your message. Saying you did great and here's what we can do next time creates cooperation instead of competition. It turns your feedback into a bridge rather than a wall. The person feels respected, understood, and still motivated to improve. The difference might seem grammatical, but it's actually psychological. But signals limitation while in signals possibility. The more you use and the more people feel like you're on their side instead of against them. That's what real leadership sounds like. Clear, firm, but still inclusive. It's not about sugarcoating the truth. It's about delivering it in a way that keeps dignity intact. Using, but too often also weakens your own authority. When you follow a confident statement with but, you undermine yourself. You might say, I want to do this, but I'm not sure if it's the right time, and suddenly you've talked yourself out of your own decision. That's how doubt sneaks into your words. The moment you insert that word, you cancel your certainty. Instead of but, try pausing or reframing. Say, I want to do this, and I'll figure out the timing. That version acknowledges reality while keeping your confidence intact. People trust leaders who sound certain even when they're still navigating uncertainty. Your language shapes the way you think, and the way you think shapes how others see you. Every time you catch yourself saying but, take a moment to notice what comes after it. Are you contradicting yourself? Are you trying to soften something that could be said more clearly? The goal isn't to never use it, but to use it intentionally. When you communicate without constantly contradicting yourself, your message becomes smoother, stronger, and more believable. People feel safe talking to you because you don't confuse them with mixed signals. You start sounding like someone who can handle both sides of a conversation without needing to oppose one to express the other. The word but might be small, but replacing it with mindful language instantly changes how people perceive your confidence, your clarity, and your character. Another phrase that quietly weakens your presence and authority is if that's okay. It's one of those small add-ons that seem polite but actually give away your confidence. People often use it to sound considerate or to avoid sounding controlling, but what it really does is shift the power of your statement to the listener. When you say, let's meet at 2 if that's okay, you're not giving a confident direction, you're asking for permission. It tells the other person that your suggestion is uncertain and that you're waiting for them to validate it. Over time, this habit creates a pattern where people see you as hesitant instead of decisive. You might think it makes you sound respectful, but there's a big difference between being respectful and being self-diminishing. Confident communication doesn't ask for approval. It invites collaboration without surrendering authority. When you remove those unnecessary qualifiers, you sound more sure of yourself without sounding rude. People who constantly end sentences with, if that's okay, are usually trying to avoid conflict. They want to make sure everyone feels comfortable, which comes from a place of kindness, but it can easily make others perceive you as someone who doesn't trust your own opinions. You might say things like, I think we should do this if that's okay, or we can start now if you're fine with that. What happens is you unintentionally tell others that your ideas are negotiable, even when they don't need to be. Confident people know that their words carry weight and don't feel the need to shrink them for approval. You can be kind and assertive at the same time. You can say, let's meet at 2 or we'll start now, and still leave room for others to share feedback if needed. When someone disagrees, they'll speak up, but you don't have to pre-apologize for having a voice. This kind of language also affects how you see yourself. Every time you use if that's okay, you reinforce the idea that you need others' permission to make decisions. It trains your brain to associate confidence with risk and approval with safety. Over time, that erodes your self-trust. You start second-guessing even simple choices because you've conditioned yourself to seek external validation before acting. Confidence isn't about dominance, it's about internal permission. You don't need someone else to confirm that what you said or did is acceptable. The moment you start giving yourself that permission, your communication shifts naturally. You begin to speak with calm authority, not forced power. You stop asking for acceptance and start commanding quiet respect. Removing, if that's okay from your language, doesn't mean you become cold or demanding. It means you're taking ownership of your words. Instead of saying, we'll do this tomorrow if that's okay, you can say, we'll do this tomorrow and I'll adjust if needed. It keeps the tone flexible but assertive. You're still open to others, but you're leading the conversation instead of following it. That's what people respond to, leadership that feels confident yet considerate. The more you practice dropping those small qualifiers, the more natural it becomes. Soon people will notice that your presence feels stronger and your words sound clearer, even though your tone hasn't changed. It's not louder speech that creates respect. It's the quiet confidence that comes from speaking as though your words already deserve to be heard. Another subtle phrase that drains confidence from your communication is when you end strong statements with, does that make sense? Or, at first, these phrases might sound harmless, even friendly. But what they really do is plant doubt in the listener's mind and signal uncertainty in yours. When you say something meaningful or clear and immediately follow it with, does that make sense? You're telling people you're not confident they understood you, or that you didn't express yourself well enough. It puts the listener in a position of validation, as if their approval decides whether your message had value. This small habit comes from a fear of being misunderstood or sounding too firm, but it backfires by making you sound unsure and hesitant. Confidence doesn't seek reassurance, it assumes clarity. You can always pause and give space for questions, but you don't have to ask for confirmation after every sentence. When you believe in what you're saying, people will believe it too. Ending statements with, has the same weakening effect. It's a filler phrase that people use when they're searching for connection or agreement, but instead it breaks the rhythm of certainty in your tone. Every time you say it sounds like you're asking people to agree rather than simply stating your thought. It's like you're holding out your words for someone else to validate them. Over time, this habit can make your communication sound nervous or scattered, even if your ideas are solid. Confident speech doesn't rely on fillers. It's grounded, simple, and self-contained. You don't need to check if others understand every time. You need to trust that you've spoken clearly enough. Silence after a statement is not awkward. It's powerful. It gives your words room to land and allows people to absorb what you said without pressure. Another reason people use "does that make sense?" or, is to sound humble or approachable. But real humility doesn't come from questioning yourself. It comes from being open to feedback without pre-apologizing for your clarity. When you replace those phrases with confident pauses or open-ended invitations, your communication becomes stronger. Instead of saying, "Does that make sense?" try saying, "What are your thoughts on that?" or "I'd like to hear your perspective." Those alternatives still invite dialogue, but come from confidence, not doubt. You're not asking for permission to be understood. You're leading the conversation while giving others space to contribute. That small shift changes the entire dynamic. People listen differently when they sense you trust your own message. Every time you end your sentences with those validation-seeking phrases, you teach others that you might not fully believe in what you're saying. Over time, this creates an impression that you're uncertain even when you're capable and knowledgeable. The strongest communicators know how to hold their ground in silence. They make a point, stop talking, and let it sit. They don't rush to fill the space with, or "does that make sense?" because they understand that silence doesn't mean misunderstanding. It means attention. The more comfortable you become with those moments of quiet, the more powerful your words sound. People will start paying closer attention, not because you demanded respect, but because you embodied it through calm confidence. Your tone, your presence, and your pauses will do the work that filler words used to do, and that's when your message starts to carry real influence.